We have some really wonderful panelists. All right, so let's start by introducing the panelists. I'd like to go around and have all of our panelists introduce themselves. So I'll ask that you say your name, graduation year, your organization, your major, and a fun fact about you. So I'm just going to go in the order that you are on my screen. So Andrew, can we have you go first?
Yeah. Hey, good morning, everybody. My name is Andrew Lee, and I graduated from UCSB in 2018 and was a member of Zeta Psi. I graduated with a BS in Environmental Studies and my certificate in Technology Management. And an interesting fact about me is that I adopted a pit bull about like a year ago.
Love the dogs. So sweet. Awesome. Arcelia, can we have you go next?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Arcelia Arce. I graduated from UCSB in 1998 with a degree, dual major, political science and Chicano studies. I am a member of Lambda Sigma Gamma multicultural sorority. And a fun fact, this one was hard for me. I had to ask people what's fun about me. And so some of the responses I got were, apparently I have a wide knowledge of music. I love to travel. I've traveled 26 of the states. I'm going for all 50. I wonder if I can hit 50 by 50, but that means I'd have to get 24 in the next 5 years.
That's awesome. Well, if you haven't come to Texas, please welcome.
I was born in Texas. So,
so
that was the first one.
Wonderful. Thank you. Emma, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Del Sol. I graduated UCSB in 2017 with a major in communication and a certificate in sport management. And I was a member of Gamma Phi Beta. This was hard to try and figure a fun fact, but I've been to 17 of the 30 Major League Baseball stadiums, and my goal is to visit all 30 of them. So I'm a big baseball fan. So slowly each year, crossing a few off my bucket list.
That's awesome. Wonderful. All right. And Gabriella, can we have you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. Gabriella Sid graduated from UCSB in 2013, was part of Lambda Theta Alpha Latin Sorority Incorporated, did my undergrad studies in sociology with a minor in Italian studies. I forgot all of my Italian already. And I think my fun fact is I started training for a half marathon again. So I used to run long distance. I stopped and now have been getting back into it. So I'll be running the Ventura half marathon in February, which was my first half marathon 7 years ago. So I'll be there. And that's it.
Awesome. Full circle with the half marathon. Good luck. And you all mentioned how hard it is to figure out your fun facts. And I think I forgot to mention my majors. So Black Studies and Sociology double major for me. And a fun fact, I actually really enjoy knitting. I knit lots of things. Ask me how many of them I finish. I have lots of unfinished projects. So that's my fun fact. All right. I'd like to get down to asking the panelists some questions. So we've prepared some wonderful questions. And of course, for the folks in the room, we will take all of your questions as well. So the first question I'd like to ask the panel is what social impact means to you and how it played a role in your career or brand. So any of you feel like you want to answer that, please jump on.
I can go first. So I was on campus in the 90s, mid 90s to late 90s. And I think, you know, being a first generation college student, so I'm going to speak from the first generation college student experience, daughter of an immigrant. I was always told that, you know, going to college was going to open up all these opportunities for me. And so going to college in 1994, I participated in my first voting experience in 1994. And that was the year that Proposition 187, a lot of you guys look young, so I don't know if you know what Prop 187 is. Okay, I see some nodding of the heads. I think for many people in my generation, that ended up going into the political careers were influenced by that time. And just seeing, I think that was the first experience where I like became aware of what was going on in our state. And all of a sudden seeing, you know, like the dislike of Latinos in California. I guess I was oblivious to it growing up. And then being on the campus community was very influential in like instilling in us, at least the Latino community, instilling in us like the importance of giving back to your community. Many of us were first generation college students. So, you know, this is an opportunity for you to like open doors for people behind you. So I think that like being a freshman on campus and getting involved in some of the organizations and then seeing like the political climate, like that was my first taste of it. And I decided like I wanted to get involved in a career in public service.
Awesome. Yeah. Anyone else want to add to that or have a different thought about how this, you know, led to your brand or creation of your brand?
Yeah, I want to say I feel like social impact kind of means helping your community in any way possible, kind of help achieve a triple bottom line, whether it be socially, environmentally, or economically. And yeah, I guess during my time during school, I had the opportunity to kind of start the Greeks Go Green program, which I'm sure is still kind of going on today, where I believe like every chapter has like representative now. And yeah, I think just seeing whatever opportunities you can on campus to try to make an impact on any way you can is a great way to kind of start.
And Andrew, for those of us who weren't on campus at the time you were on campus, can you explain what Greeks Go Green is?
So yeah, so it's basically an organization that is recognized by the Greek Council now, where all the houses kind of get together and make kind of plans and goals to make each house more sustainable and reduce their carbon impact.
That's awesome and amazing. And it's wonderful that you've left your impact at UCSB, that's something that's still going on there. Wonderful.
I think you muted yourself, Natasha.
I sure did. I sure did on accident. Did anyone else have a thought here, or should we move on to the next question? Okay. All right. So I'd like to move on. How about we have Emma start this question? How can your membership in a Greek letter organization improve? Well, someone might ask you, how might your membership in a Greek letter organization improve your chances of being involved in a social impact type of career?
Thanks, Natasha. This is actually a great question because I've been asked similar things in an interview process previously. So it's great that this flows in. But as most of you know, when you're involved in Greek life at UCSB, your organization has different philanthropies that you're part of and different community service hours that you must volunteer and take part of as being part of a Greek organization. So I was a member of Gamma Phi Beta, and we had certain different requirements, and our wonderful philanthropy is Girls on the Run. But I was also involved with Hillel on campus, which is a Jewish nonprofit organization, which I actually now work for. But I was the Greek outreach chair on campus. And so my job as an intern at Hillel was to get students involved in Greek life, whether they were Jewish or not, to help volunteer in the different activities that we were running on campus. So whether it be setting up for dinners or putting together Challah for Hunger, different activities like that. So I think really, since Greek organizations kind of tend to require volunteer activities, it kind of leads to then social impact, where you're making a difference in whether it be the local UCSB community or in the Santa Barbara community. And then later on in life, you have those experiences. So when you apply for a job, say in the nonprofit world, you're able to talk about those wonderful hands-on experiences that you had being part of that Greek organization. So whether it be picking up trash in Isla Vista or going to visit seniors at the different homes in the surrounding Isla Vista community, or just volunteering with your sorority sisters and hosting a pancake breakfast, you're all learning different activities that are based in the nonprofit and social impact world. And then you can take those experiences on when you're applying to a job or interning in the real world.
Absolutely. That's great. What do you think about that, Gabriella?
I think oftentimes Greek organizations are seen as just, partying and have this very negative just view from people. But in reality, there are a lot of transferable skills that you can gain, sort of going to Emma's point, right, of the philanthropies that you get to get involved with. For Lambda Theta Alpha, St. Jude is one of our philanthropies, and we're actually a silver sponsor. So we're actually one of the organizations that raises some of the most money for St. Jude. And so we're able to talk about that. My sister, my little sister, blood sister, is actually also in Lambda Theta Alpha at her USC chapter. And because of the pandemic, they organized their own St. Jude walk on campus at USC. And so being able to say that you threw on your own event, right, a walk that you organized by yourself, I think is very impactful to the type of work that you want to do. I also think that the reason I joined Lambda Theta Alpha was because I wanted to have this network of a national organization that I could tap into. So when I was an undergrad and graduate student, if I ever wanted to travel to any state and connect with individuals that were also doing political work, that made it very easy to be able to tap into these social impact careers where I could talk to somebody that was a district director for a member of Congress, or that was doing political education work. And so I think every organization has those opportunities where you can really deep dive as an undergrad into these fields, where you can later say at a job interview, well, as an undergrad, I led our political education initiative and I did XYZ, organized XYZ chapters. And I think that's something really great that a lot of other people don't get to have. And it really helps us jump into these social impact careers, because it really is sometimes who you know and who can open that door for you. And I think with our Greek organizations, we are able to do that.
That's great. Yeah. By the time, you leave your undergraduate experience, you've had all of these resume builders just by being a part of a Greek organization. That's amazing. All right. So let's move on to the next question. So some people believe that choosing a social impact career forces you to forego a livable wage in the name of helping the community. Do you believe that this is true? And how have you navigated this? Can we start with Arcelia, please?
Sure. So this is an interesting question. I think I will start with yes. I do think it impacts your salary. I think it can get better though. So my story is, again, because my mom told me that getting a degree was going to open all these doors for me. She didn't tell me about that next part, about what, like, navigating the professional world afterwards. And so after I graduated from UCSB, I went home. I'm originally from Oxnard. I worked there for a year as a paid intern for the city of Oxnard while I was applying to grad school. Went to grad school at USC, got my master's. And then, that's when I consider like my real professional career started, after I got my master's. And so I did the whole, like applying for jobs thing. And I got offered a job working for an elected official as a policy deputy. And, I was talking to my, cohorts, the people that were in my master's program, about like what they were like shooting for. And in terms of salaries. So I asked for it, and okay. So this was a long time ago, but it was, this was 2001. So what I thought was like the bar should be like $40,000. I don't know what that is now, but it was $40,000. And so I asked for it and I didn't get it. And, you know, I think it was that I still chose to take the job because I think there was that sense like this is, you know, they sell you, it's going to be a great opportunity. You're going to be working in this high energy environment. You're going to be working on these big issues. And then you also have that sense, like, I think from like the immigrant background of like, well, this is way better than what your parents could have gotten. And I'm lucky to have a job. Like I basically graduated with a job. Like not many people today probably are doing that. So I took it and whatever, like through the years, you know, it kind of grew. At some point I decided that I needed a break from the political environment. So I left, I exited, and I got a job out in the world, in the other world. And I was like, I just decided to ask for what I wanted. And it was like $10,000 more than I was making. And I got it. I was like, holy crap, this thing works. But at some point I decided like, I'm like a junkie. And so I went back and said, I want to work in politics again. And I think my experience there, like in terms of salary, like I realized that I really loved the work and I really thought I was doing like something to benefit the community. I was trying to make an impact on the lives of people in Los Angeles. And so I had to just like wipe away like the thought that this was going to be a career, like where I was going to make money. Like I hadn't bought a house yet. Fortunately, I paid off my loans, but that's because I was very diligent. Like that's where all the money was going to go. And you know, what I learned in that experience is that when you work in politics, and I'm just going to speak from the experience of working for the city of Los Angeles and local government, there are no classifications. The person that's doing the same job as you in another office could be getting paid more. Granted, that's all like public knowledge, like you can go get a public records request and find out what they're making. But it really is dependent on who you work for and like how they value that job. And I've worked for only people of color. And I think we all come from a very struggling background. And so it's ingrained in our minds that you're here to serve, you're not here to make money. And they've told me, you know, like it wasn't just me, but they've told staff that like, if you're here for the money, there's the door. So I'm not going to say that that's the best message, but that is the message I got. And I knew plenty of times that my counterparts in white offices, like the elected officials were white, were making significantly more than me. And it's just how their boss decided they were going to value their staff. And so at any rate, at some point I was, you know, I got tired again. And so I left. And this time, like in 2018, California implemented a law that said that they can't ask for your salary history. And I think that that legislation was key to getting me up to where I'm supposed to be, because they didn't ask for my salary. Had they asked for my salary, they would have realized they could have gotten me for a lot cheaper. But they put me where in their company, I work for Southern California Edison, like at the standard of what that classification makes. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's my experience. I think you should definitely ask for what you believe you know, talk to people, try to do research on what other people in that type of job are doing or making, and ask for it, because the worst they can say is no. And none of this, like, you should just be happy to have a job. They should be happy to have you.
So absolutely true. They should be happy to have you. Does anyone else have an additional thought here on this particular question?
I can chime in on this too. I think I'm just nodding my head at what Arcelia is saying, because I feel like we have very similar paths. I also went to USC to get my master's in public administration. So went right after undergrad. So I you know, was trying to work for an elected official. I worked for an immigration nonprofit right after, and I took an internship. I took an internship that was paying me very little because I was like, I need to get my foot in the door. And so I think, unfortunately, that's the case, right? Especially for people of color, when you don't know how to navigate this very specific area of like salary negotiation and, working for elected officials, Congress pays very little. And that's where I went after the immigration nonprofit I was. That's just part of the way Congress is funded as well, because congressional members have caps to how much they can spend on salaries and just all their funding. I think local government is definitely where it's at. And now that I work for the county, I'm making a lot more money. But when I left Congress, I left to work on a presidential campaign. My salary went up $20,000. And that was a very substantial increase, right? And so there was the money that I didn't think I was capable of making, but I did it. And it was just like Arcelia said, like talking to people that have similar roles, figuring out how much does this role really pay, looking up at salaries beforehand. A lot of nonprofits and nonprofits, you can look up, how much some of the top staff is making. You can look up for local government, for Congress, there's Legistorm, you can look up staff salaries. There are a lot of ways that you can inform your research of how much people are making, and just make sure that you go in there with an informed idea of how much you should be making for the work that you're doing. I do think that a lot of nonprofits are often struggling with paying their staff, right? A lot of nonprofits do a lot of really great, valuable work. And sometimes they're like, well, we're doing the work, so you don't really need to make the money. But there are nonprofits that do pay for the money for the work that you're doing. And so really doing your research, really making sure you have those conversations with your colleagues, talk about salary with your colleagues. I think that's something that's very often discouraged, but the more you do it, the better way that you are to position yourself. My coworker, or one of my friends recently got hired at the same time as somebody else. He found out she was making $3,000 more because they had a conversation. They got hired, they started the same week, but they talked about it and they decided to go in together to make sure that they got paid the same. And so I think sometimes there's that solidarity you can build with your colleagues to make sure that you're getting paid what you're worth for the same type of work. And so I think, yes, it may be hard to, initially break in and get paid what you're worth, but I think there are opportunities at different levels of government and different organizations to actually be paid for what you're putting in.
Absolutely. I think that that's amazing. And I think I completely agree with you. As you were both talking, I was doing a lot of head nodding as well. I think knowing what nonprofits offer is important too. I work for a nonprofit currently, and when I started working for a nonprofit, I assumed I would have very low salary, not very much benefits. And that was true for one of the nonprofits that I worked for, but that does not have to be the end of the story. It is very important to kind of look into that as much as you can ahead of time and ask those questions. If you can't find it, there's no harm in asking the question, right? So that's wonderful. Okay, let's move on to another question. What type of internship opportunities exist in your chosen field? And then how do those interested in that find those opportunities? And then another part of that you may want to answer is how can students make themselves marketable for those types of opportunities? Andrew, can we start with you?
Sorry, I thought I was muted for there. So I actually didn't start my first internship until I was in my fourth year, and I stayed an extra year to finish the TMP program. So yeah, I just want to say it's never too late. But yeah, I kind of started off doing farm work and then doing tree planting and kind of helping with that. And then that kind of gave me the experience to really start the whole Greeks Go Green organization and the sustainability chair within my chapter and all that. And so, yeah, I work in the environmental sector. I'd say I work for sales for EV charging stations. And I'd say, yeah, just take any opportunity that you can while you're at school to really build that experience. Really figure out what you like and what you want to pursue. and to have that on your resume while you're job searching is, I'd say, really key.
Awesome. I agree completely. Any other thoughts? Emma, did you have a thought here?
Yes, I have to agree with everything Andrew said, and I think UCSB offers so many different opportunities to get involved, whether it be through your Greek organization or through a different department on campus. Before I worked in nonprofit, I worked in sports, which was, I mentioned before, I'm a huge baseball fan, so I lived out my dream my first 2 years out of college, but realized sports weren't for me, but had the opportunity to intern with UCSB athletics and was great. And I was a team manager for the women's basketball team while at UCSB. And I think there's so many different opportunities, whether it be through even a department on campus to get involved, or through the admissions office if you're a tour guide, or just have the opportunity to have hands-on experience, because that's going to go a long way and set yourself apart when you're applying for a job. And in the nonprofit world too, especially having that background, being in a Greek organization and being part of your philanthropy, and being able to volunteer in the Santa Barbara community and wherever else has opportunities, I think that's very helpful. I really didn't have much nonprofit experience background besides my philanthropy and volunteering there and different volunteer opportunities. My internships had really all been geared toward the sports world, but I had different opportunities while working in the sports world and interning there to do nonprofit work and to be able to volunteer and plan events, and be involved in social corporate responsibility. So that really was a great opportunity. And I think just take advantage while you're in college, or if you're right out of college, to get your feet wet, and that will really help open the doors for you.
Awesome. Thank you for that response. Okay, so I'd like to take a few questions from the group here. So one question is, what is one example of social impact in your personal or professional life that you're most proud of, and why? Let's see. Arcelia, can we have you answer that question?
Yeah, so something that I'm proud of that I worked on is what I'm thinking. Okay. So I think in my last job, I've been with Southern California Edison for 2 years. So prior to that, I worked for an elected official for the city of Los Angeles. I focused on open space. So I was a policy person, the policy director, open space, transportation, civic engagement, and especially gender equity. Those were like my main policy issues. And I think the thing that I'm most proud of working there for a little over 6 years was going back to the question about the internship. I developed a fellowship program for the office, and our goal was really to introduce young women to a career in public service and get them interested in running for office. Now, it became a 8-week summer program that was paid, which is, I think, very unusual, because oftentimes if you go try to intern for an elected official, they're going to try to get you for free because they need the free labor. They want the free labor. So we paid them. They received an hourly salary. It was 20 hours, 5 days a week. But besides getting the opportunity to work in the office and get an idea of like the policy legislative process for the city of Los Angeles, every Friday I would also I created seminars. So every Friday I would bring in a new woman in leadership to come and speak to them about different issues. So like one Friday, it might be women who worked on campaigns, or like a candidate, like somebody who had been a candidate, like talk about their experience. The next week, it might be about women in transportation. So just different, like I brought in city commissioners to come and talk to them. So every Friday it was a different speaker. At the end of the program, they had to do a project. So I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of. It ran for 5 years while I was there. We didn't do it the first year, it ran the 5 years I was there. And then it didn't run after I left. So I don't know about that. We got, I think, about 25 girls that went through the program, and I'm still in touch with many of them, serving as a mentor to them. So I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of, that I was opening the door and giving this opportunity for young women that might not have figured out another way to gain that experience and get paid for it.
That's all of that is amazing. Even though it lasted while you were there, it sounds like the impact of that is still everlasting because those folks are still connected to you. That's amazing. And paid internships like that are rare. You hit the nail there. There's another question that we will try to quickly answer. Working on social impact can be extremely rewarding, but I imagine it can also be discouraging at times, mainly because of the current events, politics, social issues, etc. Do you all ever face these feelings of discouragement? And if so, what are some of the most effective ways to combat that? Emma, can we hear from you about this?
Sure. I definitely think at times it's very rewarding, and sometimes when it is discouraging to see things you've been working on. I mentioned I work for a Jewish nonprofit organization, so we're currently dealing with a lot of anti-Semitism on college campuses. So I think it definitely, and we just hosted a campaign on social media about owning your star that was for Jewish students as well as allies to really support and uplift everyone in the community, because it's a fight that everyone's part of. And I think you need to take a step back and look at what the bigger picture is. Sometimes when you're doing this, while there might be one comment or something that happens on a campus, look at all the success that other campuses have with putting together different events to bring people together, to bring awareness on campuses regarding anti-Semitism or other issues. So I definitely have faced feelings of discouragement, thinking that the work I'm not doing sometimes isn't going anywhere, or, we're reaching the same students that are already aware of this. How can we reach a broader audience? But I think looking back and you see the success over the years of different projects that are put together, that's really rewarding. On our last project, we reached over 1 million people on social media just through likes and stuff, just promoting that everyone experiences different forms of anti-Semitism, racism. So trying to tie those in together, because we're all experiencing different things. So I think it might be hard at times when you're not thinking and you see the world around you, but I think realizing that you are making an impact, even if one day you're only affecting one student, it definitely goes a long way.
Well said. And absolutely, I can't believe y'all reached 1 million folks on social media. That's amazing. All right, so unfortunately, we're going to have to leave our questions there. I'd just like to say a big, big thank you to all of our panelists. Y'all have done an amazing job. Thank you for sharing such important and meaningful remarks. And I hope that it's impacted the folks who have joined our panel in some way, shape, or form. I'd also like to thank the coordinators of this event. This is well organized. Thank you everyone who has supported all of this. And thank you to you, the audience, and the folks who showed up. We really do hope that you got something from this today. And then I'd like to hand it over to Julie. She's got a few words for you before we move on.
Great. Thank you so much, Natasha. That was really wonderful. So much great advice shared, especially on the salary negotiation piece. It's a good reminder as we kind of enter into our careers and move along. We're finished with round one. So thank you, everyone. And we're moving on to round two. I am going to share my screen just as a reminder for what's next. And give me a second. And then George is going to drop the link to the next Zoom room into the chat so that it makes it real easy for you to choose your next panel and go ahead and move over to the next round before the start time of 12:25. So you might have a little time for a break, glass of water, but I hope that you enjoyed this. Thank you again to the panelists, and it was great to see all the gauchos in the room.